All right, we're going to talk about some park calls or call parking, call park pickup, that kind of stuff today. It's going to be kind of a more technical webinar where we're going to dig into the data because when you're building like or unlike other scenarios that you see or that we report on and verify, we don't have a lot of like predefined or your call park isn't like a predefined scenario like abandoned, connected, not connected, voicemail. Those are all predefined. It's easy to pick and choose. I only want to see voicemail calls. I only want to see abandoned calls. Call park doesn't really have that. I mean, Cisco does give us fields that we can use to identify when a call has been parked, when a call has been retrieved, and that kind of stuff. But like, you have to know what to look for. So that's really what I want to key in on this is more so to look at the data and then look at a couple of basic report examples to show you different ways you can build the reports, because it really comes down to what you want to pull out of the data and how you want to show it. So right now I'm in Verify. We're going to jump into some examples here, but first, a park call is basically, if you don't know, it's in Call Manager, or when someone's on a call, they have the option of basically putting a person on hold, and then anybody can retrieve that call by dialing a certain number, and then it links them to the caller or the call party, and then they can resume the call. So it's kind of like basically putting someone on hold, and then anybody can retrieve the person who was parked or put on hold. So a basic example is basically, when a call is parked, there's kind of three steps. So there's three parts. There's the first part, which is like a normal call. Most of the time when I'm working with customers, it's a standard like inbound call. It could be called to a hunt group or some other sort of call center. But basically, someone from the outside, a customer, a client, a patient is calling in, and they're working with somebody, or they talk with somebody, and then that person they're talking to puts them on hold. And that's step one. Step two, the caller then sits on hold or sits, parked until the call is retrieved. And then step three or part three is someone, could be the original caller, could be someone else, retrieves the person from being parked or on hold, and then the call resumes. It could terminate, it can go somewhere else, whatever. So there's three parts. The problem with the parked call data is we only get two records when a call is parked. Cisco does not give us a leg that represents the middle part where the person is on hold. So that's kind of like, it just doesn't exist. And so my example here, this is my first of my of 6 examples. This is the parked call with the pickup. So I said there were only 2 records. This record here is the caller come in. They go into Unity. They can, in this case, I think it might have been CCX when I cleaned this data up. But basically, this leg is not part of the call park. This happens before. This is just the caller coming in, so we can ignore this leg. Really, I'll just go ahead and just hide this row. So really, what happens when a call is parked, and this is what you'll see in the data, is the calling party. This is the external caller, so they're calling in. In this case, I believe they hit a hunt group, which is 2200. And they're talking to this extension right here. This is a normal call. Whether or not the person is parked, this is what we see anytime a call goes into a hunt group. The way that we know a call is parked is based on the originating termination on behalf of and the terminating termination on behalf of fields. Both of these will be set to call park. What this means is this record ends or terminates when the call is parked. So instead of like you're looking at the cause codes, which I have down here and come up as call split because there's another call leg, it just says, hey, this record ended or terminated because of a call park. And so if you really want to dive into this data, Cisco does have some call reporting and billing, or under their reporting and billing administration guide, they have an entire page dedicated to CDR examples. And so if you find call park, they go through and explain what to expect. But I'll kind of break this down a little bit easier, kind of simplify a little bit. So what you're looking for when a call is parked is just call park here or call park here, either one of these 2 fields. So if I'm doing a search, and in my case, if you're doing a weather report or history search, we're going to look for, once this loads, one of the on behalf of fields. So remove that guy. You can search for both fields or just search for one. Either one, add to your search, and then just search for the word call park. you'll find it. And my data goes way back to like 2000. I forget what time, like 2000 till 2024. So we can go back and let's go back way far back, and we'll run a quick search. And this will pull back basically every call that was parked within my database. I think there's a few hundred. We'll let it run in the background. So what we'll see here then again, the fields in yellow, this is your call park here. And then if the call is retrieved, then we see then a second record. So again, we're not getting that middle leg when this person here is put on hold. We only see it when the call is retrieved. And so when a call is retrieved, whether or not the call is inbound or outbound, because you can't park any call any direction, the retrieval leg, or the final, like the second leg, is always going to appear to what we kind of think of as like an outbound call. So even though this person called in, this extension is going to retrieve the call. So 5672 is going to call out, and in the data, it looks like they're calling this number directly, but what they're really doing is they're calling the pickup number or the group number, and so they're dialing in this case, they're dialing 800, which then connects them to this person here. So Cisco doesn't tell us in the two normal like outbound dialed fields that they're calling 800, but instead they show us that the person is being connected to the original caller. And the way that we know it's a call park pickup is in the last redirect reason is call park pickup, and then the last redirect reason also coincides with the last redirect DN. So that's kind of, I mean, on a basic call park pickup, we expect a leg, or the first leg where the termination on behalf of is either call park on the originating or terminating side, or in this case, it should always be both. And then if you want to see, who's picking up the calls, call park pickup, your last redirect DN is going to be 800, or not 800, in this case 800, but whatever number they're dialing to retrieve the call. And so that is a standard call park with pickup. We are, like I said many times now, we're missing that middle leg where the caller is sitting on hold. So I guess the question then becomes, when working with customers, the second question, well, if they hang up, or if they, I guess you can call it abandon the call while parked, what does that look like? And so here is my second example, a parked call with no pickup. So again, we can ignore and hide this first row, and all we're left with is the first record. So this is the caller comes in. We can see here the origination and termination on behalf of, and terminating termination are both call park, and that's all we get. There's never a second leg. This person was parked, and then they hang up, and Cisco doesn't give us any sort of record to refer back to say, how long they were waiting for before they hung up. There's just nothing. And so if you've worked with Cisco CDR before, and we have the two cause codes, and in a normal record, going back to our first call here, when a call terminates, we get normal call clearing in either the originating or the terminating side. In this case, because there's no middle leg saying the call terminates, we just get this record that appears to say, hey, the call was split. There's another call leg, look out for it. And then nothing happens. So call just terminates. There's no second leg. It just kind of goes off into space, and that's it for the call. So when looking at this type of data, there's not really an easy way to directly calculate the two. We can, though, and I'll get into that at the end when building up the reports, but we can compare like the number of calls that were parked versus the number of calls that were terminated or that were completed. And then the difference in that, if you calculate it, would be like how many calls were parked, and then I guess you can call it like abandoned while parked. Also, then if you want to get more into your data, or more into the kind of like the park call scenario, let me go back. I'll hide record 2 again. It's going to be a repeating pattern here. So in this case, this call is parked twice. So we have that original leg call here, came in, they talked, they hit the same hunt group, talked with 5024, call was parked. We can go over here and see the originating terminating from behalf of was call park and call park. And then the next leg is call park pickup. So we know the first leg, they were parked. Second leg, call park pickup. However, this leg then terminates because of call park. So what happens is, well, what happened in this case was the person called in, they were parked. The second extension, or the new extension, or I'm sorry, this is the same extension, 5024, then retrieve the call because we get the call park pickup, which applies to this leg right here. They dialed 800 to retrieve the call, and then they parked the call again. And then the third leg, the caller, 5024, dialed 800 again, or the extension, I'm sorry, the extension for 5024, dialed 8000 again, and then picked up the call. And then if you scroll all the way to the right, looking at the cause code, the call terminates. So by just doing a simple search on call park, it, you're going to, if the people who are parking the calls, and I've seen this a lot when we really dig into the call park data, a lot of times we'll see records where calls are parked multiple times. Maybe they're saying, "Oh, are you still waiting? Who are you waiting for?" Whatever the reason, they retrieve the call and then put it back on hold. So just a simple report looking at call park, like I did here, going back to my search. Yeah, there's 294 records that were parked, but how many of those records were the second park or the third park, or down here, I have a record that was parked 4 times. So it's something to look out for. You can filter on these, and I'll get into that when I build up the report, or when I show you the reports that I built, where you look at the last redirect reason, because the first park in a sequence is always going to be call park in these 2 fields, and then the last redirect reason will be something other than call park pickup. So when you see call park and call park in these 2 fields, plus the last redirect reason is call park pickup, that tells you that the call was picked up and then reparked. Okay, moving on. So my next example is going to be the call wasn't retrieved and was sent back to the parker. So we're going to go ahead and hide this leg again, and it's not because it's not part of our sequence. Caller here called in, hit the hunt group, and then we'll go to the right and see what happens. So in this case, call was parked again, as always, because we're talking about call parks. The call was parked, and then we'll see here in the next record, it was forward no retrieve, sent back to Parker. So there are settings within Call Manager that you can configure that after X number of seconds or however long, if no one retrieves the call, then the call will be sent back to the extension, or if the call came through a hunt group, the hunt group who parked the call. So if I scroll back to the left here, we'll see when the call went back, it went back to 2200, not 5024. That's because 2200 is a hunt group. And then, so the call was parked. And then in this record here, the call was sent back to the parker, or I'm sorry, the hunt group. And then it just happened to be answered by 5024 again. Now, we've kind of mentioned that we're missing that middle leg where the caller or the person was parked. What we can see on some records when they're retrieved is how long they were parked for. So we, in the current version of Verify, we do have 2 different ring times. There's the kind of the older traditional way of calculating ring time, which looks at the difference between date time when the call was connected and when the call terminates. So there's 26 seconds between origination time. I'm sorry, I was backwards. Origination time and connection time, not terminate. That would be duration. The 26 seconds for ring time is the difference in time between origination and connection time. So we subtract one from the other, and we get 26 seconds. As you can see in these calls here, they all share the same origination time. And Cisco has a habit of when calls come into hunt groups and when they're transferred to not update the origination timestamp. So even though this call connects at 7:19, Cisco gives us an origination time of 14 minutes earlier, 13 minutes earlier. And so that would give us a ring time of 13 minutes and 28 seconds, which is not correct. It's the time, the math is correct, but subtracting, this from this is not giving you an accurate ring time. So within the call sequences, we do have the computed ring time where we take the termination time from the previous record and subtract it from the connection time from the next record. So 7:19 and 17 seconds, 7:19 and 14 seconds gives us a computed ring time of 3 seconds. So this, when calls are being transferred, when looking for like a true accurate ring time, computed ring time will give you a better value. However, when it comes to park calls, because that middle leg is missing, then your computed ring time reflects roughly the true ring time and then the time that the caller was parked. So, and I've seen this a lot with the park calls where the limit before the call is sent back to the parker is about 6 minutes. So 6 minutes plus the actual true ring time. So you can see here, the high computed ring time is because the person was parked for 6 minutes and then it bounced back to the hunt group. So, if you're looking for, again, you're building metrics out, building out reports, you want to see when calls are sent back to the hunt group or sent back because they weren't retrieved in time. Lean on the last redirect reason. You'll see call forward and retrieve. But in this case, we also have call park here, which tells us the call was sent back to the hunt group, and then here they were parked again, and then I believe in this case the call was forwarded to, I want to say, forwarded to a different extension. In this case, it was forwarded, and then the call terminates. Not even. Yeah, normal call clearing. The call terminates. All right, one more, actually two more quick samples, and then we'll get into a quick report. Call park reversion. So it's similar to send back to Parker. I think it's just a really a matter of how or which trigger in call manager sends it back to the person or the hunt group where the call was parked from. But same thing, we're gonna hide record 2, so we don't need it. And then same thing, call was parked. We get the call parked, call park reversion sent back to, in this case, back to the hunt group. They were there for about 1 minute and 19 seconds. They were parked for, and then call was parked again. So the second time after the reversion, it was parked again, and then call park pickup for the third time. We can see that 4759 dialed 800 to retrieve the call. They talked with the parker, or the parked person, not the parker, but the parked person, the parkee. We'll call him the parkee. And then, yeah, call was cleared. Normal call clearing. So when getting into the different park call scenarios, it's important to know what they look like, what fields to key off of when you're building out your search sets, because we don't have, predefined scenarios like abandoned or connected, not connected voicemail to kind of tell you or try to identify each of these. Last one, just for fun, I found this one when looking for the data. This call was parked and retrieved 4 different times. So if we hide this guy again, this caller here, they called in, they were parked. Call was next leg, the call was picked up, call parked again, park picked up again, call park, picked up again, call was parked, and the call was picked up again. Each time someone is dialing 800. Each time they're waiting what? 3 minutes, 13 seconds, 4 minutes and 36 seconds. And then the final leg, 5671, dialed 800 here, and then the call terminates. So yeah, I mean, when digging through park call, data with park calls, super interesting to see. Just in many cases, the agents or the people who are parking the calls will retrieve the call and then repark it. Maybe just saying, hey, who you're waiting for, or thank you for waiting. Give us a couple more minutes or whatever. But for whatever reason, yeah, we see that a lot. So when building out reports, and I've got a couple of basic examples, it's important to kind of look at how you're doing it. I've had a couple customers recently that have been looking into their park calls, and there's different ways to do it. There's not just one way to build a park call report, but the one thing is, because we get so many records, I would lean towards building out my report in the cradle to grave section. My last customer that I worked with, he has a lot of hunt groups, and he wants to build out park call reports for each hunt group. So what we did a lot of is we would build out, not in this example, but we would build out like a search set that would bring in all the calls for his hunt group, and then we would turn off everything but the cradle to grave. So we turn off call history, we turn off grouping, we even turned off the search set statistics here, and then just built everything, built all the call park scenarios in cradle to grave. But for a basic search, I want to say, hey, how many park calls are there? It will look something like this, where you build your search set, and then you can do termination or terminating call termination on behalf of, and then originating call termination on behalf of. Both set up the call park. Having a hard time saying the call park. And then bring up my downloads. A simple report for one page will look something like this, where we have, how many park calls are there? And I use total call count and total call sequence count to show you there's going to be a difference. Total call count is the number of times a call was parked, or there was a call park record. What this means is this includes, like in this case, when a call was parked 4 times, this call would be tracked 4 times in that total call count. If you go with the total call sequence count, it counts the number of sequences where a call was parked, and then it'll give you, it would count this entire sequence as 1. So it's how you want to report on your calls. If you want to say, hey, how many times are my agents, parking a call, then your answer will be 290. If you want to know, hey, how many unique callers were parked at least once by my agents, then you can select the total call sequence count and have 259. If you want to get more granular and really break down, these different scenarios, you can. And what I did, and what I did with my customer, I think it was like last week, where we again relied on our cradle to grave data. So in his case, we built a search set. In this case, in my sample, I'm looking for just park calls. In his example, we did like original call party was his hunt group number. And then again, turned off everything else. And then down in cradle to grave, we built out search sets for each scenario. So here again, total park calls is looking at both of these 2 fields. Then we looked at how many sequences were resolved. That would be how many calls were completed based on normal call clearing. So so that's kind of looking at the opposite of sample or sample 2 or example 2, where we're looking for calls. In this case, we wouldn't see it, but like something here where the call was there was a normal call clearing within the sequence. And then going down, repark calls. So that's looking at calls where the join on behalf of is call park, the originating termination on behalf of is call park. So looking at the call park twice, I decided to go with call park in one of these 2 fields, and then also the join on behalf of is call park. And that way we can see, with either one of these 2 or all 3 fields is call park, then we're seeing it that it was truly reparked, ignoring the reason why it was retrieved in the first place. And then scrolling down a little bit more, forward no retrieve, and that's hitting that redirect reason that we saw in the last example. Forward no retrieve sent back to Parker, and then also broke out one for call park reversion. Same thing as the fourth one above here, just call park reversion. You can combine the 2 if you want to combine like the sent back to Parker or the call park reversion. Just delete this guy here, and then look for reversion, add it, and these 2 will be added in the same column. The end result of this report looks something like this. And this is something, Dre, I think if I sent you the copy of this JSON file, if you want to share it,
yeah, real quick, I did. Yeah, so everybody, it's in the handout section in the top right.
I see it.
Grab that. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you want to see it and take a look and see, kind of build up for yourself or play around with it, you can. But yeah, so what we have here then is a total call count and total call sequence count. Each one kind of gives a different point of view, and you can the hard part is getting someone to understand what each one means. Total park calls, number of unique times someone parked a call versus how many unique callers were parked. Resolve sequences, these should always be the same, but this is how many of those 290 or 259 sequences were completed. So really you're looking at 259 minus 252 tells you that there were 7 calls in your search that were abandoned or abandoned by the person while they were parked. So we don't get those 7 records, but the absence of them you're seeing here in the difference between 2 call counts. Repark calls, again, 34 times a call was reparked. 32 of those were unique calls. So you're looking at maybe 2 calls were parked twice, or really I think our difference in 2 calls was this example here that was parked 4 times. And then going back, so forward no retrieve, call park reversion, same thing. It's how many unique times it happened versus how many unique calls had a no retrieve or a call park reversion. And so it really comes down to just, building out your initial search sets, which could be a hunt group, could be a group of extensions, a department, however you want to build the reports, and then leaning on the cradle to grave to build out those specific search sets to identify, the different scenarios that you want. My biggest suggestion always, if you get stuck, give us a shout, open a ticket at support@verify.com. Other than that, play around with the data. Definitely turn on cradle to grave and kind of look and see what Cisco's giving us. So yeah, I'll pause here, Dre. Any questions? I know this is very technical. I apologize if it wasn't very fun.
No questions so far. And we're right up against it too, so perfect timing.
Cool, excellent.